Good evening, everybody. How we doing? How's life out there in the big city? It is a Saturday night. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome to the channel. I am here kind of watching it snow out the window behind my monitor. Um, in that, kind of very chill, kind of snowy kind of day, evening, night, snow, night. It's 9:30 almost. But not quite. Not quite. Not quite. Um, but we have a bunch. I have a bunch of books to talk about, and then I want to continue our discussion from last week about melodrama and what I think about that and how I think that's important or changing. I have thoughts. I have thoughts about all of these things. But first of all, salud. Happy we made it through the first week of February, y'all. That's an accomplishment. I think at this point we have survived the first week of February, and therefore we should feel accomplished. Because there's lots of things that could have gone wrong at this point. Oh, and you guys can't hear the music, so let's restart that so y'all can hear the music. That's in the background. This is actually from Drummer Boy. DMCA free music to use in your streams. They posted in Troopers Discord. I'm gonna put the bunch of different playlists. Actually, really cool. There's the link tree if you want to go look and see what you can find. I'm liking it. I'm liking it. It's groovy. It's groovy. It fits the vibe. But so this week I read a lot of books. Like I do. A big chunk of them were rereads for me because I like to reread books, and therefore, I reread books that I own because I can. And then I get new books from a variety of sources, but I also reread old books. I started a reread of, because sometimes you just need a comfort read, and the past couple weeks have meant that I needed a comfort read. And for me, my big comfort read, well, one of my two big comfort reads, is the Oath of Swords War God trilogy series by David Weber. Particularly the first two books, which are just, I think, phenomenal. They're well written, they're complex world, it has interesting characters, making interesting choices, and I appreciate them. But I've talked about them a lot. I mean, I'm going to talk about them again because I can, because I love to talk about these particular books. And then I'm going to you've got my favorite. So there's Oath of Swords, War God's Own. I like the other three, but Oath of Swords is really my favorite. Oath of Swords and War God's Own are two of my favorite books of all time, and I reread both of them this week. They are both fantasy series, but they're both fantasy books in a series called the War God series by David Weber. They are high fantasy, epic fantasy, paladin, complicated feelings about gods, interesting world building. You know, the world is almost recovered from the cataclysmic events caused by magic, and now people are still trying to get by. And you've got what is, I think, one of my most important books that I would give, like War Gods, Oath of Swords and War God's Own, but Oath of Swords in particular, when I was teaching, I would put in the hands of as many students as possible, because I believed that it is probably the best depiction of how you should act when you perceive someone else being the victim of sexual violence. And it is a frank discussion. It's a real look at how this is literally the first pages of Oath of Swords. Spoiler warning for Oath of Swords. I guess I should put that, spoiler warning for a book originally published in February of 1995. So a book that is 30 years old now. Wow, that book is 30 years old. Okay, I'm old. But the premise of the book begins with Basil Bannock's son and being a political hostage for a ceasefire and peace treaty between his city-state and a neighboring enemy city-state. And coming across, he is a political hostage. His actions reflect on the possibility of them going back to war. He's he can't respond to insults that he may be given. He can't respond to a lot of things. If he responds in violence to anything, that could break the peace treaty. And lots of reasons why politically it would be very difficult for him to make certain choices. But in the first couple pages of this book, he literally hears violence being done to someone, and then he determines that it is violence of a sexual nature being done to someone. And he chooses, while acknowledging that this is possibly a political problem, an issue that might literally drive these two city-states back to war, that it is his moral obligation to interfere. And that's what he does. He also then proceeds to kill a bunch of people. It's kind of cool, in a way, how much appropriate response Basil takes. And then it's in his removing himself, believing that if he removes himself, he's removing the political situation, he's breaking the hostage treaty, but he's, not going home, he's going somewhere else so that he can, deal with other things. Hey, Cold Drake, welcome in. Thank you for that resub, I appreciate it. But he, as part of this, goes on a journey and ends up, in the first book, attracting the attention of the god of war as the possibility of becoming his champion. And the tagline for the book is, for whom the gods would recruit, they first piss off. Which I think sums up the entire series in, the best possible way. And then the second book happens shortly after, and it's a look at how Basil has accepted his new responsibilities as a champion, an avatar, a paladin, if you will, of the God of War, but Oath of Swords. Oh, the title for the stream or the title for the book? Because the title of the book is Oath of Swords. But the War God's Own is literally starts as a look at how he's dealing with being a member of a disenfranchised and despised species, fantasy race, if you wish to use that term instead, who is not well liked, but is now a champion of the God of War, and is due certain respect because of it, right? Like, he is in a position that he is in, and he has to act in a certain way and be treated and respond in a certain way, but at the same time, people are people and people are assholes. It is a very, in my opinion, I love the series. I think it's very well written. I think it's a great relaxation kind of read. Pantheon by proxy? I mean, kind of. And it is really good. And that was, like, I read those two. I knocked those out in like a couple hours because, they're rereads. I enjoy them. I read them frequently. They're comfort reads. And I recommend, if you have not read any, either of the War God series by David Weber, or really anything by David Weber, you should go read David Weber. If you like fantasy, go read the War God series. If you like sci-fi, space opera, go read the Honorverse. If you like complex space opera, if like morally gray space opera that kind of eventually resolves itself into a positive ending, go read Safehold. There are currently 10 books in that series. Coldrake is nodding at David Weber. It's like, yeah, go read David Weber. That's really all you need to do. Honestly, Safehold is kind of literally, Safehold is a post-apocalyptic space opera. If you look at Arthurian legend, basically, it is very complex. And then there's the Dahak series, which is just general space opera. It's not really, it's good, but it's not great. What Koldrake asked my opinion, what do I think of the Foundation trilogy by Isaac Asimov? I think I was so excited when they announced that they were going to do a Foundation series for television, and then I found out it was going to be on Apple TV Plus, and I don't have that. And then I found out what they were doing with it, and I was like, well, never mind. The Foundation trilogy is like all Asimov. On one hand, well, we're talking about sci-fi now, so I should change the music. By the way, we're listening to Drummer Boys. Actually, we should do space and sci-fi. There we go. Public playlists. They're on Spotify. They also put the link in chat. Welcome in time. I like the Foundation series, and my biggest thing is there's so much of Isaac Asimov that gets picked up for film in a variety of media or reinterpreted into other media, and people are like, oh, I know what this is about, and you're like, okay, so you know the bare bones of what something is about, but you've reinterpreted it in such a way that it's like the difference between a spaghetti bolognese in Bologna and SpaghettiOs, right? Like, in theory, those are connected, but they're massively different. Like, people talk about, it's like, oh, well, I watched Blade Runner. I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean you should not, that just means now that you've watched that beautiful film, which is in and of itself a beautiful film, now you need to go watch, but that's not Asimov, it's Philip K. Dick, do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, right? Like, you need to go read that. Or if you saw I, Robot, like, great, now go read The Laws of Robotics and understand that films change things. Yeah, like I, Robot with Will Smith. Detective, check. Robots, check. Original book title, no, check. The entire movie, not the book. Yes, like, there's so much that goes on in iRobot that is not what happens in that movie at all, in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, what happens in that movie, if it actually followed the book, it wouldn't be that movie. Like, Starship Troopers is another one. You were correct, Coldrake. Like, the fusion... Starship Troopers, at least Starship Troopers, the movie, kept the tone of the book and understood that this was supposed to be satire, right? Like, political commentary and satire. The book is political commentary and satire. The film is political commentary and satire. Wishing that the plots were more similar? Yes. But, so I reread David Weber. But to answer your question, the Foundation Trilogy is great. I recommend reading the Foundation Trilogy. I think it is a really good book. Trilogy. It's a trilogy of books. And it is so formative to the genre of science fiction that people believe they know what is in the book, but they don't, right? Like, the original Foundation series is so foundational to... The original Foundation trilogy is so foundation. I will eventually find better words. It is... important. Like, right? Like, important in such a way that it becomes part of the zeitgeist, and people don't understand where they're, like, making references to, and it's like, yeah, that's from the Foundation trilogy. That's from, specifically, you could say, okay, this is from the Big and the Little, or the Merchant Princes, or the Mares, or this is part, you know, from the Search by Foundation, right? Like, all of these are so zeitgeisty that people think they know what they're reading and or have read because they've seen, you know, films about it, they've seen the TV series, or they claim to have seen the TV series, by the way. Oh god, that TV series. It looks beautiful. It absolutely does. Like, I have to acknowledge the fact that it does indeed look beautiful, but I haven't seen it, and there's so much things going on. Yeah, well, it's... So Coldrake, right, says, when I was a young whippersnapper, I got to read two titles as polar opposites. Starship Trooper, which is war written by an officer in the military, and the Forever War, which is written by someone who was an enlisted ground pounder. And that's true, but it's also important to take out another factor in Starship Trooper versus the Forever War. the Forever War is just the author of the Forever. Oh, who is the author? Now I'm blanking on his name, and I shouldn't because. Joe Haldeman, right? Joe Haldeman? Yes. Joe Haldeman is... The important thing also, besides being a enlisted and, you know, recruited individual, was actually based on, to my recollection, he was, I'm just double checking this now. Yeah, he was a physics and astronomy major who then became enlisted. How could I go blank on Joe? I mean, they're talking about Isaac Asimov, and that was who was stuck in my head, and I was like, it's Joe Haldeman. I know it's Joe Haldeman. You know, and then, so Joe Haldeman, is a physics major, right? And Heinlein is a, like, so Joe Haldeman is a applied physics. Heinlein is himself an aeronautical engineer, right? Like, these are two very, like, they're both science, but they're not science the same way. Like, and that is also very apparent, right? Also, Haldeman is, you know, he was drafted by the army versus Heinlein, who volunteered for the army. It's also a difference between Heinlein, who serves, you know, in World War II, or World War II era Navy, well, you know, World War I, World War II, they, you know, the 30s and, right, the 30s and 40s, he's in the Navy, versus Joe Haldeman, who is Vietnam era U.S. Army. Those are not the same military. Those will never be the same military. Yeah, but that's the thing, Coldrake. The hoorah mentality of glory of war for World War II in Starship Troopers is supposed to be satire. And it's like there's a lot of satire in that book. There's a shit ton of satire in that book. Oh god. Oh, and speaking of, if you like, oh god, what's it? If you are a fan of what is the channel name? Okay. If you are interested in Starship Troopers and looking at both the novel and the film and how it works and everything that went into it, Kyle Calgren did a brilliant multi-video essay breakdown of the whole thing on YouTube. You should go look it up because that is a brilliant analysis and how it's like a 3-part series. It's absolutely brilliant. How Heinlein and Verhoeven both were trying to do similar thing. You know, Verhoeven is the director of the movie and Heinlein is the writer of the book, and how all of that becomes very complicated. It's like, so it's totals is like 4 hours of a video essay that I think is really, really well done. I firmly recommend it. You should go watch it. It's on his YouTube. You can go watch it there. But I firmly recommend that. Now, entirely shifting gears, we should talk about the book the new book I read this week. You know, I reread some for, I reread David Weber just as comfort rereads, but I read, a new book, which will be releasing February 25th, called The Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton. And it's very interesting because The Fourth Consort, so Edward Ashton is the author of, and I'm going to put the link to the bookshop.org link in the chat. There you go. Have fun. So he's the author of Mickey 7, which is getting a film, the film is coming out. Mickey 7 film is starring Robert Pattinson. It is releasing in theaters March 7th. And it is a very interesting film. I have not read Mickey 7, the book, but the premise is that to escape Earth because it's overpopulated and somebody can't get a job, this guy volunteers to be have his consciousness permanently downloaded so that he can be put into have eternal cloned bodies, and he can be the guinea pig to find out if space exploration is safe in this particular planet or this particular place. And literally he keeps dying, and this is the 7th Mickey that they are on. Right? And it's a very interesting breakdown. I haven't actually read the book yet, so I need to go do that. But I did read The Fourth Consort, and I would love for you all to read this book. It comes out February 25th, 2025. Is brilliant. I think a number of you will really enjoy it. It is both first contact well, kind of. I will give you the breakdown in a minute, but it is a brilliantly written piece of literature. It is sarcastically funny in a very dark manner, in the best possible way. And it is... the premise is hilarious, and if you were all involved in the internet sphere for the past 10-ish years, the premise of this novel, you will see where it comes from and you will appreciate it. Or if you... well, I hope you appreciate it. I appreciated it, right? I personally really appreciated it. So... the book starts with Dalton Gray. I'll read you the blurb. Here's the blurb, right? Here's the blurb. Yeah, so Coldrake is correct. Mickey 7 sounds like the first guinea pig for Star Trek Transporter. Trust us, you'll just stand there on the platform and in less than a second you'll be up in the space station. Yep. Literally. And it's a dark comedy. And The Fourth Consort is also a dark comedy. So this is the blurb for The Fourth Consort. Dalton Greaves is a hero. He is one of mankind's first representatives to Unity, a pan-species confederation working to bring all sentient life into a single benevolent brotherhood. That's what they told him anyway. The actual members of the Unity the only actual member of Unity he's ever met was Borreo, a giant snail who seemed more interested in plunder than spreading love and harmony, and Borreo's human sidekick, Nira, who Dalton strongly suspects roped him into this gig so that she wouldn't become the next one of Boreo's crew to get eaten by locals while prospecting. Funny thing, though, turns out there actually is a benevolent confederation out there working for the good of all life. They call themselves the Assembly, and they don't really like Unity. More to the point, they really, really don't like Unity's new human minions. When an encounter between Boreo's scout ship and an Assembly cruiser over a newly discovered world ends badly for both parties, Dalton finds himself marooned, caught between a stickman, one of the Assembly's nightmarish shock troops, the planet's natives, who aren't winning any congeniality prizes themselves, and Nira, who might actually be the most dangerous of the three. To survive, he'll need to navigate palace intrigue, alien morality, and a proposal that he literally can't refuse, all while making sure Nira doesn't come to the conclusion that he's worth more to her dead than alive. Part first contact story, part dark comedy, and part bizarre love triangle, the fourth consort takes an important question: how far would you go to survive? And more importantly, how many drinks would you need to get there? So, it is brilliantly written, witty, enjoyable. Dalton is a brilliant character who is absolutely great. But this is indeed a novel that if you have at all been part of the internet world, and if you were on Tumblr and particularly 10 years ago, this is... somebody took the Tumblr discussion of Earth as Space Australia and humans as the weird species to put on alien spaceships, writer's prompts, and wrote a book for it. And it's hilarious. And complicated. And you just have like, Dalton, I want you to do so, like, boy, you're trying so hard here. And just like the comment that there's an actual line in the book, which is the stickman, the representative of the Assembly, who's like, well, I understand more about this alien species who is an insectoid species on this planet than you do, because my species are all predators and you're a prey species. And Dalton's just like, why do you think we're a prey species? What about us says we're a prey species? It's like, I don't want to give anything away, but if you read any of this... Oh yes, there are universal translators. Well, that's not true. Each of them have an implanted translator, and the translator is an AI, and God, is that translator sarcastic as fuck. And he's like, well, there's a line where something doesn't get translated, and literally the text is untranslatable. And Dalton says, hey, could you at least give us, like, a general... He goes, and the AI is like, well, we only translate things that we have 95% assurance on understanding. And Dalton's like, well, lacking the word could maybe be a bigger problem, so could you lower that threshold? And the AI's comment is something along the lines of, well, if I lower the threshold to 55%, I'll provide commentary on how accurate I think it is, but you assume any and all liability for any assumptions you make based on that inaccurate translation. And you're like, oh god, it's hilarious. It is, like, I have, like, the AI translator is jealous because Dalton makes a comment about how they call it Breaker, who is the stickman, who is the representative of the Assembly, who is also on this planet. They're both stuck on this planet because their ships kill each other. And Dalton says, well, Breaker's translator is better, and the AI is like, if you try to upgrade me to some assembly, like, if you think that the assembly has a better translator, that I'm just gonna go, you can't do that, I have a contract. Like, it is hilarious. And the translator AI and its relationship with Dalton is one of my favorite relationships in this book. God, it is not quite full on the humor of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but there's a lot of those same kind of undertones. It's Hitchhiker's personality, you know, it's the personalities involved in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but in a slightly more tense and politically driven situation and reality, right? Like, these are first contact people who are supposed to be involved in a situation, but their ships are destroyed, and now they are acting as ambassadors on this planet that has does not yet have space capabilities, but understands the space capabilities that exist and can make sense of it. So they're like nuclear powered, but they haven't left their own atmosphere, kind of thing. If we are continuing the Star Trek metaphor, these are full on, you know, not warp capable civilizations, but possibly soon to be space capable civilizations. And because of that, there's a lot of tension and politics that have to go into this. How do you stay alive in this situation? And Dalton, there's a reason the title is The Fourth Consort. Okay? I'm just going to tell you. I'm just telling you that there's a reason the title is called The Fourth Consort, and the alien species that's on the planet that's there is an insectoid species. Like giant ants or grasshopper insectoid based species. So take that with the title and think what you want. But this is a really, really, really good book. I think it is actually really well written. The humor is entertaining. It's a very interesting look at the premise that exists about, you know, Earth as space, Australia, you know. Not quite Larry Niven. Not quite Larry Niven, but some similarities could be made. Some comparisons could be made. I would allow that. But it is a very well, like, I read this in a couple hours. It's not, I mean, for me, it's not that long. What is it? What is the actual? It's 200 pages. Right? It's a quick read. It's paced really well. Dalton is like, there are a couple of flashbacks that are very interesting and humanizing Dalton at the appropriate moments. The writing is not the most lyrical prose, but it's enjoyable, right? Like, there's a difference between lyrical prose and just well-written book that is good. This is the latter. It's also also a standalone novel, so it's not a series, and it doesn't really, I don't think it will become a series. I think it's just going to stay a standalone, which in the sci-fi world is very interesting. And I think it's worth it. If you like sci-fi, if you like First Contact, if you at all enjoy Tumblr's writing prompt discussion of Earth as space, Australia, there you go. Oh, Alan Dean Foster. Yeah. Alan Dean Foster, I was like, Larry Niven isn't the writer of the Flink series, but I don't remember all the titles of all the series that Larry Niven's written. Larry Niven has written a lot. So Time says, about the insectoid hint. The butterfly has wings of gold, the firefly wings of flame, the earthworm's got no wings at all, but he gets there just the same. So I'm the earthworm. I mean, less of that and more... ants and grasshoppers and how in colonies and you know, things like that. Discussions of things like that. Just throwing it out there. It is beautifully, beautifully written, quite enjoyable. More Mantis, you know? Yes. Yes. Larry Niven is very much for the Ring world, and all of it, but like the titles of the trilogy and series and the Ring world series are just complicated, is my answer. But yes, Time, you are exactly right. So, you know, how does a first contact individual who is a male presenting individual deal with a species of insectoid predators where males are only used for breeding purposes? Just throwing that out there. So, you know, politics and violence. But, so those are the 3 books that I read. 2 of them were a reread. The Fourth Consort by Edward Ashton. Go order it. It's going to be available February 25th. Bookshop. It's on bookshops.org if you want to order it there. And hashtag not sponsored, but Barnes & Noble is doing a pre-order sale right now, so you know, that's a thing that exists. But what else has everybody written? What else are people reading? What else are you engaging with at the moment? How do you feel about life on, you know, all of those things? As I get a pop-up message from... Okay, well, whatever. Not my problem right now. But that is our discussion of books for the day. But I want to keep discussing other things, including particularly the melodrama. I want to continue the melodrama discussion we started a week and a half ago, and continue other points of discussion. So what I'm going to do is put us on the BRB and then change Drake says, I have a stack 6 books high, Metaphysics to Carl Sagan, but like Prax, I'm rereading 4-book series from ages ago. What 4-book series are you rereading, Cole Drake? I mean, share. Let us know exactly what book you are reading. So, like I said, I'm gonna get ready. What we're gonna probably do is shift gears into chatting about some more K-dramas and Chinese dramas that I've been thinking about, and again considering the way in which those dramas discuss melodrama. But we'll come back to that. I'm gonna take a short break so I can reset things, and mostly so that when I upload VODs, it will be easy. And then, you know, we can chat while I play some Civ. There we go. We can chat and play Civ. That's what's gonna happen. All right. So I'll be right back. We'll see you in a few, everybody. Oh wait. Cole Olddrake says, F. Paul Wilson. I came upon his book Sideways in a short version of one of the book and analog. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So I will be back shortly, everyone. And we'll see what happens. Enjoy the dulcet tones of Drummer Boy. And if you like this, you should check out their playlists for DMCA free playlists. So there you go. I put their link in chat, and we'll be right back.